people can't even find this city on a map, and that's exactly why it belongs on your bucket list. Welcome to Baku. We're covering the Flame Towers, legendary petroglyphs, where to eat like royalty on a budget, and how to avoid tourist traps. And stay till the end, because we're revealing insider details about Baku you won't easily find online. Let's conquer Baku! Day 1. Baku's Old City, Waterfront, and Skyline. Morning. Maiden Tower. Start your morning in the heart of the Old City at the Maiden Tower. This is the ultimate symbol of Baku and is so famous that it even appears on the national banknotes. Historians are still debating its true purpose, with theories suggesting it was anything from a Zoroastrian temple to an ancient observatory. The interior functions as a museum, but the real reason to visit is the view from the roof. The spiral staircase is a tight squeeze, and if you're carrying a bulky camera bag or a backpack, you'll definitely be bumping into the limestone walls on the way up. Once you're out on the observation deck, you get direct line of sight where the low stone rooftops of the old town meet the glass of the modern flame towers. Admission is about $9. Arrive right at 9 a.m. to stay ahead of the tour groups, as that narrow, one-way stairwell quickly becomes a total bottleneck. It's a much better experience when you have the space to move at your own pace. Palace of the Shirvanshahs. Just a short walk from the Maiden Tower is the Palace of the Shirvanshahs, the most significant historical complex inside the old city walls. This limestone site dates back to the 15th century and served as the royal residence for the Shirvanshah dynasty. The complex includes the main palace, a mosque, and a burial vault. As you walk through the various chambers, you'll see that rooms are empty of furniture. You'll find the actual artistry in the vaulted ceilings and the intricate Shebeka window grates. These windows consist of hand-carved wood and stained glass pieces that interlock using tension, without a single nail or a drop of glue. Admission to the palace is about $9. Pick up an audio guide at the entrance, as the signage is very brief, and you'll likely walk past the hidden entrance to the underground bathhouse without it. Late morning. Museum of Miniature Books. Take a short walk through the side streets to the Museum of Miniature Books, which officially holds the Guinness World Record for the largest collection on the planet. This room packs more than 6,500 tiny volumes from over 60 different countries. The main attractions are the 3 smallest books ever printed. They're a mere 2 by 2 millimeters, and you'll have to squint through a magnifying glass to prove they're actually bound books and not just specks of paper. While the collection looks like a library for ants, these aren't just novelties. They stem from an ancient Persian tradition of miniature bookmaking, where the craftsmanship of the binding was a point of pride. You'll see everything from the microscopic religious texts to a tiny version of the Beatles lyrics. It's a bizarre, quiet little shop that offers a completely different scale compared to the rest of the old city. Insider tip. The museum is free to enter, but the schedule's very specific. They only open from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. and remain closed every Monday and Thursday. If you arrive even a few minutes before 11 a.m., you'll find the gates locked, so do not plan on an early start here. Lunch at Itinerary Shahar Bookhouse and Cafe. Head over to Asaf Zainali Street to find Itinerary Shahar Bookhouse and Cafe. It's a quiet sanctuary that feels more like a friend's private library than a typical tourist restaurant. You'll see floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with books and walls covered in murals of Azerbaijani poets, which gives the whole place a very cool, intellectual energy. The menu is simple and focuses on a local comfort food. Order the herb-filled kutabs and a bowl of the creamy lentil soup. If you have a sweet tooth, the homemade honey cake paired with a pot of Azerbaijani black tea is the way to go. You'll likely see a few local students or writers tucked into the corner tables, which makes the place feel lived in and authentic rather than a staged tourist spot. A light lunch here costs about $10 to $12 per person. It's the perfect spot to cool off and recharge before leaving the old city walls, especially since the atmosphere is much more relaxed than the louder cafes near the main square. Afternoon. Azerbaijan Carpet Museum. Swap the medieval stone walls for the Caspian breeze and head toward the waterfront to see the Azerbaijan Carpet Museum. The building mimics a giant bronze-colored scroll, providing a sharp contrast to the architecture of the old city. This unique design creates one of the most photographed spots on the promenade, especially when the afternoon sun hits the metallic curves. Inside the exhibits, follow the history of weaving from the ground floor to the top. At the entrance, you can watch professional weavers working on massive vertical looms. Seeing them tied thousands of knots by hand puts the high price tags on these rugs into perspective. As you move to the higher levels, the displays showcase rare 17th century silk pieces that look almost brand new despite their age. The museum is open daily, except for Mondays, and admission costs about $6. Insider tip. On your walk from the old city to the museum, you'll cut right through mini Venice. It's a surreal little cluster of turquoise canals and ornate stone bridges. I suggest jumping on one of the electric gondolas for a quick $2 ride. It's a solid 10-minute rest for your legs, and you get a clear shot of the flame towers from the water without having to dodge the crowds on the sidewalk. Deniz Mall. Continue along the promenade to Deniz Mall, the massive white structure shaped like a blooming lotus. It acts as the waterfront's main anchor and offers a perfect air-conditioned break before you head toward the uphill viewpoints. If you want to shop, the mall houses everything from international brands like Zada and Nike to high-quality local gems. I suggest shopping by Butali for jewelry featuring traditional Azerbaijani patterns, or Ali and Nino for unique stationery and local books. It's open daily from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. and entry's free. If you're not planning to buy anything, head straight to the top floor balconies for a quieter view of the BAKU Ferris wheel. It's a much better spot for a quick coffee than a busy ground floor cafe, and you get a clear shot of the coastline without the crowds in your way. Late afternoon, Baku. Walk a bit further down the pier and jump on the Baku. This 60-meter wheel sits right on the edge of the water, giving you a clear, unobstructed look at the entire Baku skyline from the Caspian Sea. From here, you get the absolute best view of the Crystal Hall, the massive diamond-shaped arena built specifically for the Eurovision Song Contest. A ticket costs $6 for a 10-minute rotation. You'll see the entire curve of the promenade stretched out before you. It's a fantastic perspective that shows you just how much this city has grown. Insider tip. The cabins are fully air-conditioned, so use this as your 10-minute escape from the humidity. I suggest timing your ride for the late afternoon. The sun hits the glass on the flame towers directly, making them sparkle for your photos. Highland Park. Head up to Highland Park for the best view of the city. This is where you get that classic Baku photo with the old city, the Caspian Sea, and the flame towers all perfectly lined up in one frame. To get to the top, grab a ticket from the funicular for about $1. It's a quick ride that saves your legs, but keep in mind, it's closed on Mondays and shuts down for a lunch break from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. If you arrive during those times, you'll have to take the 207 stone steps instead. It's a solid workout, but the view gets better with every flight you climb. Once you reach the summit, take a walk through the Aliyev Martyrs. This is a quiet, black marble memorial for the people who died in 1990 while fighting for independence from the Soviet Union. It's a heavy and powerful place, but it gives you a real sense of the history behind the modern skyline. Make sure you walk all the way to the eternal flame at the very edge of the park. That's the best spot to see the flame towers looming right over you for a massive perspective of the glass architecture. Early evening, flame towers. Take the 15-minute walk from Highland Park to stand right at the base of the flame towers. These 3 skyscrapers define the Baku skyline. They symbolize the country's oil wealth and its pivot toward the future. Each tower stands 182 meters tall and towers over the city from its spot on the hill. Since the buildings house the Fairmont Hotel, private apartments, and offices, you won't find any public museums or observation decks inside. Use the stairwells that cut through the park to reach the main plaza area. Every night, the glass panels turn into giant LED screens. You'll see animations of flickering flames, shifting colors, and the national flag lighting up the sky. Insider tip. Save your energy and skip the lobby. Security is tight and there's not much for tourists to see inside. Instead, hang out near the base as it gets dark to watch the LED show. It looks far more impressive when the flames are dancing right over your head. Evening. Dinner at Fiduze Restaurant. Walk over to Fountain Square for dinner at Fiduze. This place is a local legend that's been around since the 80s. You head downstairs into a cozy, underground cellar packed with hand-woven carpets and traditional copperware. It feels exactly like a classic Azerbaijani home. A solid meal here usually runs between $15 and $25 per person. The menu's full of staples, but start with the gutabs, which are thin, savory pancakes stuffed with greens or meat. For the main event, definitely order the shaplov. It's a royal rice dish filled with lamb, apricots, and chestnuts, all baked inside a crispy golden crust. It's a massive, flavorful meal that's the perfect way to wrap up your day. Day 2. Local markets, modern Baku, and the land of fire. Morning. Yaşıl Bazar. Hop in a taxi for a quick 10-minute ride out to Yaşıl Bazar. Known as the Green Market, this is the most authentic slice of Baku life you'll find. There are hardly any tourists here. It's strictly for locals haggling over the best seasonal produce in a space that feels like a classic, old-school bazaar. If you visit in October, the entire market is a sea of deep red as the pomegranate season reaches its peak. You can grab a glass of freshly squeezed juice right at the stall for about 60 cents. It's a sharp, refreshing wake-up call and a perfect way to watch the city come to life. Late morning, Heydar Aliyev Center. Leave the market and grab a taxi for the quick 5-minute drive to Heydar Aliyev Center. This is a total architectural masterpiece and easily one of the most iconic buildings in the region. Designed by Zaha Hadid, the entire structure is a massive, flowing white wave with no sharp edges or straight lines. It looks more like a fluid sculpture than a functional building. The surrounding grounds are a bit of a surrealist playground, dotted with oversized neon sculptures of snails and rabbits, alongside the mandatory I Love Baku sign. If you want to explore the rotating culture and design exhibits inside, a ticket costs about $9. Even if you just stay outside to admire the curves, it's an essential stop to see how Baku is pushing the boundaries of modern design. Afternoon, lunch at Armud Baku. For lunch, head over to Armud Baku in the Narimanov district. This spot hits a sharp balance between a sleek, modern dining room and the warmth of a traditional Azerbaijani home. It's usually packed with local professionals rather than tourists, which is always the best sign. The menu offers an interesting mix of national dishes and high-quality sushi. Go for the saj, a large, sizzling cast-iron tray of lamb and roasted vegetables cooked over an open flame. You also have to try the tea service, served in the traditional pear-shaped glasses the restaurant's named after. A solid meal and a tea set typically run between $20 and $30. If you want a top-tier meal away from the tourist traps, this spot is perfect. Late afternoon, Atashka Zoroastrian Fire Temple. Take a 20-minute taxi ride out to the Atashka Fire Temple on the Absheron Peninsula. This 18th century stone fortress was built on a site where natural gas once vented directly from the earth, earning Azerbaijan its reputation as the land of fire. The central altar still flickers today, surrounded by a ring of low-ceilinged cells where monks and pilgrims lived and prayed. Entry is about $3. Walking through these cramped, weathered rooms gives you a gritty, first-hand look at the ascetic life led here centuries ago. It's a fascinating, primitive contrast to the glass towers of central Baku. Insider tip. Use the Bolt or Yandex apps to get here for around $6 to $10. Since the site is isolated, request your ride back about 10 minutes before you're ready to leave to avoid a long wait. Early evening. Yanardagh, Burning Mountain. Now let's head to a site that truly defines Azerbaijani identity, Yanardagh, or the Burning Mountain. These are natural flames that have been burning continuously for centuries, fueled by gas escaping through the porous sandstone. As early as the 12th century, travelers were already writing home about these magical fires that never needed wood to keep going. The reality of standing here is intense, as you can actually hear the low, steady hiss of the gas venting from the earth, and you'll feel a dry, sharp heat hitting your face long before you reach the ridge. It shows you exactly why this region earned its reputation as the Land of Fire. The best move is to arrive right at sunset. As the sky darkens, the flickering orange flames become incredibly vibrant, making the whole hillside look far more impressive than it does in the bright afternoon sun. Entry is about $5, but if you're coming from the Fire Temple, which is only a 15-minute drive away, you should use the $9 ticket combo to cover both. Evening, dinner at Marani Restaurant. Head back to the city center for a massive Georgian feast at Marani. This is where you go when you want a break from kebabs. The scent of melting cheese and fresh cilantro hits you the second you walk into the dark, wood-paneled dining room. The move here is the Ajruli Hachapuri, a molten cheese bread boat topped with a runny egg. You have to stir the center quickly while it's bubbling to create a rich dip for the crust. For the main, the hinkali are a must, but handle them like a pro. Bite a small hole, slurp the hot broth first, and leave the doughy handles on your plate so you don't fill up on plain dough. A full dinner here with a glass of red wine typically runs between $20 and $30. It's the absolute best way to decompress, though the live music can get intense. If you want to actually hear your conversation, try to grab a table in the back library section. Day 3. Qobustan's Petroglyphs and Mud Volcanoes. Morning, breakfast at Cafe Botanist. Grab a taxi at the Caspian Plaza branch at Cafe Botanist. The whole place has an indoor greenhouse where every plant is for sale, so the air smells like wet soil and fresh coffee instead of car exhaust. The Botanist breakfast and croquet madame are the go-to choices here, but the pistachio latte is the one thing you shouldn't skip. If the morning crowd's a bit much, head to the hidden, quiet room in the back. It's a strict, no-talking zone that's a total lifesaver if you need a quiet start before the drive. Breakfast and a coffee usually cost between $12 and $22. It's a solid way to prep before you leave the city for the rugged, rocky landscape of Qobustan. Late morning, Qobustan National Park Museum. Drive south for about an hour to reach Qobustan. As you leave Baku, the luxury towers vanish and are replaced by sun-bleached plains and industrial ruins that feel worlds away from the city center. The first stop is the National Park Museum, which is essential for understanding why you're seeing carvings of sea creatures in the middle of a dry landscape. It's also the only place with air conditioning, so I recommend taking your time here before you head out into the exposed rock. Entry is about $6. Public transport is a mess of bus transfers that can take all morning, so it's much better to take a Bolt or Yandex for about $12 to $18. Insider tip. Since the site is isolated, negotiate with your driver to wait for you while you see the museums and the carvings. It's way more reliable than trying to find a new ride back to the city from the side of the road. Afternoon, Qobustan Petroglyphs. From the museum, head up the hill to the rock formations. This is what you're really here for. Thousands of years ago, this was a lush landscape where hunters lived in the caves, leaving over 600 carvings in the stone. Today, it's a rugged UNESCO site where you can walk right up to the ancient dancing figures and mysterious reed boats that are still incredibly sharp. The reed boats are a massive point of debate. Many believe they represent a link to ancient Egypt and the journey to afterlife. It's a surreal contrast to stand next to 1,500-year-old carvings while oil refineries flicker on the horizon in the distance. This is the clearest visual you'll get of Azerbaijan's ancient past, sitting right next to its industrial future. The ticket you bought at the museum covers this area too, so there's no extra fee. Insider tip. Keep an eye out for the gavel dash. It's a massive flat stone that rings like a percussion instrument when you tap it with a smaller rock. Ancient tribes used it during ceremonies, and I recommend giving it a try. It's a rare chance to actually interact with a prehistoric musical instrument. Late afternoon, mud volcanoes. Since you're already at the petroglyphs, you have to make a short trip to the mud volcanoes. You can't get there in a regular taxi because the road's essentially a cracked dirt track that would bottom out a standard car. You'll need to hire one of the local drivers at the museum in an ancient, beat-up Soviet Lada. It usually costs between $12 and $18 for the round trip, and the ride itself is a 10-minute rally race across a barren lunar landscape. The scene at the top is completely surreal. These aren't fire-spewing volcanoes, they're cold, gurgling mounds of gray sludge. You'll hear the constant wet popping sounds of gas escaping through the earth, and if you poke the fresh bubbles, the mud is shockingly cold and feels like liquid silk. It's a common sight to see locals smearing the gray sludge over their skin or filling up bottles to take home, since it's packed with minerals that supposedly work miracles. Just keep a close eye on your feet as you explore. The slick, wet clay is like ice and will absolutely ruin your shoes if you step in the wrong spot. Evening, dinner at Sumak. As you get back to Baku, head to Sumak for a high-end take on Azerbaijani soul food. The walls are covered in huge hand-woven carpets, giving it the feel of a grand dining room that stays surprisingly quiet even when it's busy. Since you've likely had your fill of rice, go for the saj. It's a massive, sizzling platter of lamb or chicken and seasonal vegetables cooked over coals. The meat stays tender because it slow cooks in its own juices right in front of you. Another standout is the kuku, a thick, herb-heavy omelet that's a deep, vibrant green and tastes like a concentrated burst of fresh garden greens. Dinner usually costs between $30 and $45. It's the best spot to decompress with a glass of heavy pomegranate wine after a long day of driving through the dust. Useful info for spending 3 days in Baku. Best time to visit. The best window to explore Baku is from April through June and again in September and October. The weather is pleasant, ranging from 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 24 degrees Celsius. This range is perfect for walking the Caspian Promenade without the intense summer humidity. July and August are brutally hot. Winter is mild but notoriously windy, around 35 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 2 to 7 degrees Celsius, so bring a windproof jacket to handle the city of winds. City airport tips. You'll arrive at Heydar Aliyev International Airport, located about 15 miles or 25 kilometers from the city center. For the cheapest entry, the Aero Express bus runs to the central metro station for less than $1. If you want a direct ride, order a Bolt or Yango, which usually costs between $6 and $10. Ignore the swarm of aggressive drivers at the exit who will try to grab your bags and quote you $50 for a $10 ride. If you don't use apps, find the official London-style taxi booth inside the terminal. These distinctive purple or red cabs are official, but scams still happen. Always make sure they turn on the meter or confirm a fixed price of roughly $15 before you let them touch your luggage. Where to stay in Baku? When choosing your home base in Baku, aim for areas that define the city's character. The Old City is a fantastic choice, placing you inside ancient fortress walls among narrow limestone alleys and hidden guest houses. For a completely different energy, focus on Fountain Square, famous for its pedestrian buzz, lively wine bars, and exceptional late-night dining. If you're watching your spending, shared hostel beds begin around $15 nightly. For independent rooms, mid-range hotels typically require an investment starting at $60, with luxury towers often climbing toward $200 per night. How to get around Baku? Baku's transport network is robust, relying on a clean metro system and a modern fleet of red buses. For payment, you'll need a BAKU cart, a rechargeable card that lets you tap at the gates. A single trip costs just 30 cents, making it incredibly budget-friendly. For private cars, stick to Bolt or Yango, but be alert for common scams. Drivers often lie that their card system's broken to demand cash or ask you to cancel the ride to avoid app fees. Always keep the ride active in the app and only pay the price shown on your screen to avoid being overcharged. Where to eat in Baku? Baku offers culinary depth across its distinctive neighborhoods. For a classic, historic experience, travel to the Old City and visit Kazmak. This underground gem specializes in home-style dishes like tiny dushbara meat dumplings and savory kutab pancakes, costing about $25 to $40 per person. For a buzzing, casual alternative, head to Fountain Square for Fisinjan. This lively spot serves modern takes on favorites like their signature rich walnut stew, with meals typically running $20 to $35. Finally, for plant-based food, look for Manipura near the waterfront. It's one of the city's few purely vegan spots, serving creative walnut kebabs and meat-free plov for around $15 to $25. And that's a wrap on 3 incredible days in Baku. You survived the bumpy ladder rides to the volcanoes, explored the hidden corners of the old city, and definitely earned that extra glass of pomegranate wine. If this guide helped you navigate the City of Winds without getting scammed, hit the like button and subscribe for more itineraries. Ready for your next big adventure? Your journey through Istanbul starts right here, where you'll dive into even deeper layers of history and some of the best street food on the planet.